the trailer.
Yeah.
But
You know, something to keep in mind about this is that this is young Lex Luthor. This isn't the Lex Luthor that we know. This is kind of like, it's kind of weird because Batman and Superman are already established, but Lex Luthor is getting his origin story.
Well, wait, sorry to interrupt you. Isn't the thing he's not actually the Lex Luthor we know? He's the son of the Lex Luthor we would have encountered before?
That's true.
And so he's not actually the one we would have known. So he's a bit different in that respect.
Yeah, that's actually
what they were
really true.
playing off of.
So, like, he's the son of Lex Luthor.
Yeah, so he's the son of Lex Luthor, so he's a shitty punk, basically, in comparison to what his father was. So I don't know what their plan is with him. Personally, he came off really weak and kind of, I would say, poorly developed.
Mm-hmm.
I think, depending on where they go with him, it was a nice touch that they made him kind of like, they took the techie billionaire kind of CEO kind of approach, which I thought was more of a modernization of the character, but it was still kind of, he came off just punky and weak to me. And his motivations were like, why?
Yeah, I agree. I agree and I don't agree. I think that he was a really far from what the original Lex Luthor is, which isn't bad. I also think it was really, I guess, witty, or I don't know if I want to say smart, to make him kind of somewhat relevant to how a person would be now. But at the same time, he did kind of have that, what's that guy's name? I can't remember him. That douchebag with the weird, like, Schlotsky name that bought the cure and jacked the price up by a whole bunch.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, he's an asshole.
Wait, the recent CEO in real life or something else?
In real life, yeah. It's somewhat recent, like a year ago now. I can't think of his name, but it's something like...
To be honest with you, though, that's every pharmaceutical CEO ever. Though.
This is true.
Considering you have the same bullshit going on with the EpiPen.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So they went that kind of route, I feel, where you have someone who's in a place of power doing some underhanded shit and just it getting out of hand, pretty much.
Zack Snyder?
I guess. I don't know. But I think they're trying to set him up for something in the future, because it looks like they're trying to do, the long run sort of thing, but just jumping into the action and saying, fuck the origin stories. So he's not dead. He's going to be back, I think.
I'm just confused. I didn't know Lex Luthor had a son. I mean, if anything, ain't he use DNA to clone Superman to make Superboy?
He's not literally.
It has more to do with where they're going in the film. It's like you have Lex Luthor, the father, in this story, and then you have Lex Luthor, the son. So you don't. So essentially, you have this new kind of character, so that it gives them free reign to reinvent him how they feel they want him to be.
We don't want reinventing things. We want you to go by the source.
Well, honestly, there's a lot of stuff wrong with Batman vs Superman, and that's just one of them. Namely, also the fact that they needed to tweak the fucking gamma settings on the fucking movie because it was just literally just too visually dark. You couldn't see shit. It was just really poor choices on that, because I think the DC cinematic universe, which I think is what it's run by, is Universal. Are they the ones who have most control of that?
I thought it was WB or something.
Oh, Warner Brothers. Thank you, Warner Brothers. Yeah, they're the ones who I think have the most creative control over the DC cinematic universe, and they're sprinting so hard to catch up with what Marvel has. They're not paying attention to the quality they need to be putting out. And I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I am going to have to agree with you right there. I'm curious to see, because the topic, so you viewers know, that Spurs is kind of on, was that there's a new tactical battle suit for the Injustice movie. And as I talk about this, I'm kind of remembering a lot of the things that I want to talk about, which is somewhat the direction of how the movie is even going to be. I feel like people are very torn when it comes to this movie, so I'm watching it. I've been a little bit more into the comic book movies now that we have this whole Marvel versus DC thing. I find it kind of fascinating, if not sometimes a little bit disappointing. But
especially DC.
Right, all these expectations that fans have, it's really interesting to see how people react to it in different ways. So we had a little bit of movie news. I'm going to go over to the next one would be Star Wars news, and I know this is still very early on, but they're talking about there being a live action Star Wars series. So I think that would be cool, but a little bit scary. I don't know who would handle that and how that would be. Where would it even take place?
It depends. Have they said what they want to base it on, or who, or where?
I want to say they had some information, but it's kind of tight-lipped right now. I'll try to see if I can find any more information on that in the next few days, because I know they're still leaking stuff here and there, and it's only a what if right now, or it's a if right now.
Well, to be fair, I mean, there's been there was a discussion in the past about a live-action Star Wars TV show. And I think mainly the one they were going to, at least George Lucas was trying to push, was it was going to be a bounty hunter focused one. It was the one that they were trying to push years and years and years ago. But where this one is now, considering George Lucas doesn't have the same level of creative control he had before, I think they can kind of do whatever they want. Which, if it has Star Wars attached to it, they can probably do some mediocre trash show and it'll make money, just like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Is Agent S.H.I.E.L.D. even good?
I think it's garbage, but some people are like, no, it's getting better. I'm like, no, it's garbage.
I'm one of those guys.
I thought that show.
You're like, no, it's getting better, man. Just bear with it.
When I first heard about it,
they're gonna make it. Don't worry.
I thought that show would be over by now. To be honest.
Well, I think they're introducing Ghost Rider this season, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. They are introducing Ghost Rider.
Is Nicolas Cage going to be there?
No, I'm really disappointed it's not going to be Nicolas Cage.
Oh, man. I like Ghost Rider, believe it or not. I actually like that movie.
What? I like Nicolas Cage. I like that movie for what it was, but it's not Ghost Rider.
I don't know, but I do like the movie.
Yeah, Ghost
Rider was just straight up a bad movie. I don't... 20 minutes until the fucking...
I didn't say it was a good movie. I said I liked it for what it was.
Which was a bad movie?
Yeah, pretty much. I like a lot of bad movies, dude. There's a lot of bad movies I like.
Who doesn't know?
I could list a whole bunch of them. But, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is one of those shows where you have to just really, really like it in order to like it. Like, you have to really like Marvel. It's not for everyone. I'm the only person I know that watches that show. So, I don't know. But you're absolutely right with your point of they could just put the name on it and people would go see it. So hopefully they don't squander that ability that they have to do that with the fans. Hopefully they actually make something that has some TLC to it. And hopefully it's something relevant. I assume it would be. But there's not much information on it. I did do a little bit of digging. And it's up in the air right now. It's up to the executives of the company to do that, because it sounds like there's a demand for it. It's just a matter of if they get the funding at this point.
Well, I mean, like, if you have the green light from Disney about making a Star Wars TV show, and I think something they could do would be if they... This is me thinking completely out my ass, so don't quote me on what I'm going to say. But is the benefit they could have from this would be they could piggyback their Star Wars TV show along with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and boost its crappy ratings. So that could definitely really help that show out. So that's something they could do. Because ultimately, anything with Star Wars in it is going to draw a lot of the fanboys who are just basically completionists and have to just sponge in everything Star Wars. Because I think Disney has... one of the things you can definitely appreciate about what Disney has done with Star Wars is there is a lot of brand protection as to what they're doing with the films and any type of visual media associated with it. So there is that protection level, but as far as their merchandising protection, oh my god, they've gone off the rails. Like, as far as the crap I've seen at the stores recently about Star Wars. So
yeah, and putting out spoilers in the process, I think.
Oh yeah, like giving away yeah, they probably gave away a lot, but seeing a cute little Kylo Ren, and I'm like, aww. I just see a little bitch is what I see. So I'm not too into Kylo Ren yet. So it's just like, ugh.
He's that
I like him.
He's that wannabe Darth Vader, right?
Oh yeah, fucking straight up wannabe Darth Vader.
Okay, I know the name sounds familiar. Okay, I know who.
Yeah, the lightsaber with the two halberd things that come out.
Yeah, the cross guards.
All right.
Yeah, I like Kylo Ren, and I'll try to briefly explain why that is. And you might think it's complete bullshit, but it's just my perspective. But I think the idea of this imperfect, or not even imperfect, but this unstable Sith is almost it's a great embodiment of like that transition between light side and dark side, because with Hayden Christensen's character, I can't even think of Anakin Skywalker. It was vastly different. Like, it was just, oh, my girlfriend's dead now. Like, for sure, I'm gonna fuck everybody up. Like, I'm done. You've activated my trap card. Gone. But you have this guy.
Choked my girlfriend to death. Whoops.
Yeah, and I don't know how I feel about that one, because I hated his transition from Darth Vader. Again, those movies didn't count, so they never even actually happened.
They count. They totally count.
But
they count, unfortunately.
If they don't count, then they wouldn't call this episode 7 then.
Well, yeah, here's something, like I guess we're going completely off the rails away from Kojima and that shit, but if you look at episode 1, 2, and 3 as a political drama that mirrors America after 9/11 and the choices we made, it's actually kind of a creative political telling of the militarization of the United States. So you can look at it like that, which makes it a much deeper and more interesting story. But I don't necessarily believe that was intentional. But that's just me.
Yeah, I'll look at it that way. I can interpret. It's art. You can interpret art however you want.
Well, yeah, it's literally just, there you go. Everybody needs someone to tell them no once in a while, and George Lucas just didn't have anyone to tell him no.
No,
yeah,
you can't do that.
But,
no, George, character George, let's not put him in the movie.
Yeah, I'm torn about that, because I loved Jar Jar as a kid, and as I got older, I look back on it and I'm like, what?
I still like him. I'm sorry.
What?
Yes. Yes.
But, you like him ironically, you dick.
Yeah. Well, that, and he's kind of anthropomorphic, I feel. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that would do it. Yeah.
I don't think that has something to do with it. You just don't know it.
No, I don't know if you can consider him anthropomorphic though. But
if he was a human.
Well, he's just an alien creature.
Okay, all right. I'll leave.
But I've been debating that to myself though. Can an alien be considered anthropomorphic? I have debated that myself before.
I mean, for the most part, aliens are usually inspired by like things that we already know.
Yeah.
They're usually mixtures of different things that we've seen in science or nature or what have you. Rarely is it just completely something that we can't imagine, because we have to have some sort of reference. But long story short, with Kylo Ren, he's this person that idolizes somebody for the beliefs that they stand in, but he's torn because the things that he has to do to get to that point are very conflicting to how he obviously feels. And so you have this person who's visibly throwing these tantrums that most of us hold in. Like, he has all this power, so he hasn't been taught. He was, trained and messed up in the head, and he's not going to be right. And so I think the idea of showing someone who's a kind of a whiny baby and actually shows their emotions, sort of. He shows it to the audience, but very rarely does he show it to like a big mass of people. He's usually very composed when he's around like his other people, for the most part.
I wonder if he grew up without a dad. That's why he killed Han Solo.
I can't say Han Solo was probably the best dad.
That also.
And Princess Leia gave him too much stuff.
I mean, his family dynamic is kind of fucked up.
I think this is a case of the Skywalkers as a family just need to be removed from the universe, and it would probably be a better place. Is kind of what I'm getting from the whole Star Wars saga at the moment.
Mm-hmm. That'd be interesting. I would like to see the Star Wars universe without the Skywalkers.
What if?
Still be in it though.
Yeah. I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, where they're going to go with Rey, if she's, like, Luke's daughter, I'm going to be like, that's the laziest fucking writing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Like, that's too easy, I suppose.
I'm going to share with you my theory about how I want it to be. I'm not sure if I shared this in past podcasts, but I want her to be Palpatine's daughter, is who I want her to be.
Ooh.
That's what I want, and I think that would be badass.
That would be cool. That would be flipping it around a little bit. I'd like that. I'd like that more than, everyone wants it to be a Skywalker, I feel, or a good majority of people, like the fanboys, really want it to be a Skywalker.
I just want the lightsaber. I'm good.
There you go. But I agree. I think that's interesting. Or some sort of non-Skywalker would be nice, I think.
Yeah, something you kind of like, even though, because I think the funny thing, I think a lot of people, the way they've been pushing Star Wars is they're like, no, it always follows the Skywalker. That's just kind of how the story goes. And you're like, well, I guess, yeah, you can say the last 6 movies have effectively followed a Skywalker. But I would love for them to change the dynamic of this film and make it like Palpatine's daughter, so that way it's kind of like this great mirror of how Palpatine, like essentially, so if Palpatine can pull Kylo Ren away from the dark side, it's kind of a great mirror of how Palpatine pulled Darth Vader to the dark side in the original.
I apologize. I'm trying to think who Palpatine is.
The Emperor.
Darth Sidious?
Oh, he's the guy with the black cape, right?
Yeah, the Emperor, the fucked up face. He's like,
okay, yeah. Okay, that would be pretty interesting now I think about it. Yes.
Yeah.
On the dark side.
You're fine. Your friends were fine. This upper station is quite operational when they arrive. Something along those lines. But my thought is that it would be great if it mirrors the first 3 films in the sense that Palpatine drew Anakin Skywalker to the dark side, where the next 3 films show a Palpatine trying to rescue a Skywalker from the dark side. And I think it would be a great counter contrast, but I think they're probably not going to do because I like it too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. That'd be fun. There's a few different theories that kind of brew now, but the last bit of movie news is something that I'm probably more excited about. The idea of it, because I guess at this point we're kind of just heads in the cloud possibilities episode, but this one is Daniel Radcliffe. He's never going to close the door to the idea of playing Harry Potter again. If you don't know, there are new Harry Potter books being made.
Yes, so, I actually bought one for my mom for her birthday.
Yeah. So there is a possibility of more Harry Potter movies, and Daniel Radcliffe is open to being a Harry Potter. Right now, he's not the right age. I don't know how old that is. I'm guessing he's not old enough to be Harry Potter. So they may wait a few years. I think it would get a bigger following if they did use Daniel Radcliffe again as Harry Potter, because I didn't read the book. So my mind of Harry Potter, who I think of Harry Potter.
I read the first 2 books. I read the first 2 books. Now I don't know how old he is in the newest one, but I'm guessing in his 30s at least. I guess I know he has a child.
If it takes place after, directly after the book, then
30s, yeah.
Okay. I know he's supposed to have a child in this latest book, and I haven't heard much from my mom talking about it yet, which is quite surprising since he used to have a Harry Potter club when I was in elementary.
Yeah, I think this is somewhat relevant with the fact that the fantastical world of beasties and where to find them, whatever, that's coming out in November 18th. That's the other Harry Potter universe movie that they're making right now. That has nothing to do with Harry Potter. That takes place in America, actually.
Is this based on some kind of book I don't know, or this is throwing it out there?
I think this is based off a book that's in the world of Harry Potter. I'm not correct. I'm not sure on that, but it's called Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. So you can definitely check it out, find out more about the movie and the book. I believe that's based off of.
Was it by the same author, or? Yeah.
Okay. J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, you got it.
R.L. Stein, something like that.
Okay, it's not by J.K. Then no.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. She owns the rights to that. Maybe. You know what?
I'm gonna hold that thought. I don't know, to be honest. I'm not even sure if she even wrote the like the 7th. What was it? Is it the 7th book? How many books are there? The latest one. Because the latest book, I believe, is more like a play than like any other Harry Potter book.
I don't know. I'll admit it. I've never really read the Harry Potters, nor have I watched the films, just because I'm not really into wizards and magic. It's just not the thing. I've seen the first movie, and I'm just like, eh.
Oh, okay. Did your mom said no?
No, my mom actually gave me the books, and I read part of the first one, and I was like, this shit's really boring to me.
I knew a kid who wasn't allowed to watch Harry Potter or read about it.
I know a number of kids who weren't allowed to watch it because of the demonic connotations of witchcraft.
It's witchcraft.
That wasn't my family. It's literally just one of those things where I'm like, I've also always been a bit of a contrarian my entire life, where if everyone likes something, I tend not to.
Hipster. So
that's kind of me. So I'm like, I might read Harry Potter decades from now, but I don't care. That's me.
Yeah. Kind of likes me with those Batman games.
Ooh.
I'm sorry, I don't care for it. No matter how many times people tell me to, you play it, you enjoy it. Try this one, you enjoy it.
Games you're talking about?
Yes, yes, sir. I don't like them.
I'm not like I liked. Man, I grew up on 1960s Adam West Batman.
Yes.
So and I like the Tim Burton ones, but I mean, to me, Batman will always be Adam West running around being an idiot. So I'm just
Taylor might find this funny. I got Street Fighter the movie for Christmas, and I ended up returning it and got the Batman movie of Adam West.
You returned Street Fighter the movie? You're a fool.
I returned it so I can get Batman the Adam West version.
Yeah, that's pretty great too, though. I mean, the shark repellent in that movie.
Yes,
the best part.
Yes, I love it. Shark repellent. What am I supposed to do with this bomb? And
Did we lose Tavian?
Yeah, we lost Tavian. I apologize. I was 13 at the time. I didn't know what I was doing. No, wait, I might have been 14.
I don't know. That's one of those things where, the Street Fighter movie was one of those. It was I'm trying to think of what the first video game movie was. It was Street Fighter, one of them. It was among the first ones, and it was just.
I think the first one I've seen was Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, that was good though. I mean, as far as when movies came out, that one was the movies that were coming out in the summer of 94, 93 yes. When that came out. They were actually pretty decent, so it was pretty good. But Street Fighter was one of those movies where you're like, what the hell did they just make?
I felt that way with Mortal Kombat Annihilation. And when I was a kid, I hated that movie because even though I knew very little about the Mortal Kombat and its story, I knew they fucked it up. Sub-Zero should not have even killed Smoke in the movie. That really turned me off. All right, well, I'm sure this wasn't the original topic. What were we talking about?
These were. We were talking about Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah, Harry Potter.
We've closed that, but I want to switch topics to something that I'm very interested in. That's why it keeps popping up. But it's Konami and Kojima, and they both released a little bit of information about their games. We already know that the Final Fantasy game, not Final Fantasy. I'm sorry, Metal Gear Solid. Or Metal Gear Survive, not Metal Gear Solid.
Yes.
Metal Gear Survive is going to be a co-op kind of post-apocalyptic zombie game. We know that already. What we didn't know was that Death Stranding is going to be an open-world game with cooperative functions. And that's very vague because that's how much information they've given us on how co-op works in the Kojima, or in the Konami game. No, in the Kojima game. And go ahead.
I was about to say the good news is that I think I read somewhere that it's not going to be a full retail price of a game.
Yes, that is also for right now. That's the case, which it leads to some interesting questions that I'm going to challenge myself to ask because I am a fanboy of Kojima, not Konami, and I feel like this is a very pivotal moment for not just Kojima but Konami as well. They're both making their first game. They're making their first. Konami's making their first Metal Gear game without Kojima, and Kojima's making his first game. I think since Metal Gear, at least Metal Gear 1 for the NES, without Konami. So it's a very pivotal moment for both of these entities. You need to see if Kojima is going to do well outside of Kojima? Or outside of Konami? Was it Konami that kind of kept Kojima in check by saying no all the time? Or were they really stifling his creativity? Or is Kojima the next Peter Molyneux who's promising all these things, but because he's actually with a new company, will we see like his fantastical way of thinking, or will he actually make a better quality game outside of Konami? That's where my head's going right now. So I'm curious to know if you guys have any thoughts on any of that.
Well, because it was it Sony Studios that brought him on board?
Yes.
And they're like, here's a blank check, make whatever the fuck you want, right?
Pretty much.
So, I don't know. It seems like Kojima historically has had a lot of really good ideas. A lot of his game, like especially like even the ones he made for like Sega CD back in the day.
Snatcher.
Yeah, Snatcher are like just renowned for their storytelling and their ideas and stuff like that, and the fact that like they pay homage to a lot of the earlier, I would say like 1980s science fiction films, things like that. And I think if you give Kojima the time and the money and and just the resources to make the game he wants to make, I think he can make something probably relatively innovative. I haven't really played too many of his games. I've followed him throughout the years, but I think if you give him enough time and like the resources he wants, he'll probably make something really interesting and ultimately something memorable, which is what a lot of games in this generation are lacking, is that people, like a lot of the big AAA companies will release a game and then they're just forgotten about almost a week later. So the key thing here is that Kojima has name recognition. Not only you're almost guaranteed an experience with one of his games, so you have this option or this wonderful opportunity to play a game, remember it, and it'll kind of go into that whole cultural zeitgeist thing. So where am I going with this? But I think if you give him the time and the resources, I think he's going to make something probably a lot of people are going to be talking about. Because ultimately, I think the Metal Gear Survive thing is them just cashing in on an IP Kojima helped them build for the last couple decades, and that's kind of a bummer what Konami's doing. But I think that one's going to be relatively forgettable because I think everyone at this point knows the creative force that ultimately drove Metal Gear was Kojima. But I don't necessarily know the team dynamic or what he had there, but I think it's going to probably turn into that.
Yeah, and here's the other bit of information is that, and me and Tyler actually talked about this last week, but the team that supposedly, from what Konami is saying, the team that worked on Metal Gear 5 is making the new Metal Gear Survive. And so you have the situation where you have the head of Konami, the head of Kojima, and the body of Kojima separated, supposedly. I guess he has a whole new team. They haven't really disclosed or talked about that. But I guess for the most part, a lot of the people that worked on this game, and them releasing a statement, I feel like kind of solidifies what you're talking about for me, because they're basically saying, oh, we still got all the talent and all the people that made this game. We just don't have the mind, you know? and I agree with you, but I'm trying to remain unbiased, even though I'm definitely biased towards against Konami.
Yeah, it's kind of, if you want to see that franchise continue, and if you really enjoyed the last couple of games, then definitely keep investing in the Metal Gear franchise. Because ultimately, if you like those characters and you like where the story was going, even though it's under a new navigator, essentially, you should continue to probably invest in those games if you want them to continue being made. I think ultimately gives Kojima probably the creative leeway to do something different. Because I don't necessarily know if they actually released the major reasons as to why they released Kojima, but it also might have been something along the lines that Kojima just literally wanted to do something different. Because it seems like the last 8 years, he's just been making Metal Gear games. So he probably wanted to make something just a bit different.
Yeah, I want him to.
Maybe, wasn't it the new CEO that had no clue who this guy was until he found out he screwed up?
What are you talking about?
Wasn't there like a new CEO that got on Kojima? I hope I said his name right. I actually heard he actually talked trash to Kojima. Damn it. Kojima. Okay. I actually heard something that he actually talked trash about the guy and saying no one cares what you did or whatnot.
And that's possible. Honestly, like I didn't really look too deep into the.
I heard it from several people saying they just did not get along, and basically treated him like trash.
Well, yeah, that right there, like in the sad part about like the game industry, especially in the higher ups.
Yeah.
You have drama and an unfunctioning like dynamic between company leadership and some of your key creative minds. It all breaks down. Like you have serious issues. Like I don't know why I want to talk about this, but a great example would be like when Sega released the Dreamcast, and the CEO of Sega North America had a reputation for being a bit of an asshole. And a lot of people didn't like him. Sega of Japan was like, you need to leave because we need third-party publishers to make games for this, and none of them like you. So that's like a big part of it, and that was a big part of like them kicking out the CEO of Sega of America, even though he was the guy who laid the groundwork for the success of the Dreamcast's initial release.
Wow.
So you have to have, in companies like that, if you don't have a good flush dynamic between producers, company leadership, and your creative minds, you hit these bottlenecks and or brick walls where just nothing happens. So I can see that being a problem where literally the new CEO comes on board, looks at his numbers and figures, sees that Kojima's department eats up a vast majority of their company resources, and he's like, what do you even do here? And I can see how that would cause problems, but yeah.
Then he decided, you know what, we're going to invest in pachinko machines.
Yeah, remember, like Konami ultimately is a Japanese company, and they were doing what they thought would be beneficial for their company, even though apparently new figures are out, and the fact that like pachinko as an industry is shrinking in Japan.
Yeah,
because ultimately it's just a boring game, no better than.
I never played pachinko, but I did download like a arcade anime something or what it was, and all I did was hit this button. And all these marbles just fall down.
Yeah. That's pachinko.
So to get back to what you were saying, I find that very interesting. And something that's been going through my head during this conversation is that this whole situation seems almost very political. And in a few different ways that I will try to talk about, and hopefully you guys can give me your thoughts on this. But like I almost want to use that whole sportsing situation that's going on right now, the whole kneeling thing, and I don't want to pick a side on how that is, but my point is that you have these people who are making tons of money. They're making good money, but for whatever reason, they're standing up or sitting down or however you want to look at it, and saying that I don't feel right in this situation, even though I'm making tons of money. And I feel like
the athletes who aren't standing and putting their hand over their chest for the Pledge of Allegiance, right?
Yeah, that.
Here's what I say.
Here's my opinion on this one. I'm like,
I want to say something though.
For sure.
I don't care. I don't care. So don't end up people when they're doing the pledge. That's all I have to say. Sit down. I don't care. Kneel. Lay down. Eat a sandwich. Be quiet.
It's your choice. It's your right not to do it. And the fact that people are making such an issue out of this, I find really intriguing. It's like the thing, like, since my background's military, I don't have a choice. I have to salute the flag when I'm in that because I took an oath to do it. So that's my perspective on it. And you have videos coming out of servicemen who are filming themselves not doing it, which, see, for a serviceman to do that, it's very silly and very, very much a bad idea because you took an oath. It's your job. You don't have that choice anymore when you made that decision to enlist and or commission. So that you don't have that right or that authority anymore. As a civilian, you have every right in the world not to salute the flag, not to put your hand over your heart. It's your right. You can express your opinions. You have the right within the Constitution to protest, to peacefully protest. It's a part of how our country functions and how everything works. And as people to bitch about this and cry about it the way they are, it just annoys me because ultimately you have that right.
To be honest, I'm not too surprised about this because I didn't stand for the pledge throughout high school, and I got rolled up several times.
Yeah, which that shouldn't even happen. There's a whole other topic about that. Talk about.
It's against your religion, and then you could sue the.
No, I just never really agreed with America. Or didn't really care. Yeah. I just want to sit down.
So I agree with you, and you make me want to call you Captain America with that whole spiel, actually, because that's kind of how Captain America is. And I agree, and that's what makes America great, is the ability to have that sort of freedom of speech and not be ostracized for doing so, because people came here to be able to express what they think, not to become a dictatorship socially, which is kind of what's going on with certain groups of people, is they're like dictating how you're supposed to conduct yourself when certain events are happening. We have American traditions, but those traditions are optional for the most part. Not constitutions, not talking about those sort of things, but traditions that we have, the few that we might have, that's an option. It's not mandatory. And people are getting this mindset that things are mandatory. And bringing it back to my point is that AAA companies are getting to this point, or have been at this point for a long time, of how they should conduct their games and how they should conduct themselves. And it's always been put the dollar amount first, like put the money first, then put the game second. And indie games have shown that you don't need a whole bunch of fucking money to make a great ass game.
Nope.
And I'm hoping the developers are learning from this. I'm not saying Konami is, but my point is that you have these developers who a lot of really good indie games are made from developers who worked for AAA companies at some point or time, but didn't feel like they had their creativity to do so in that job. So they just got the skills they needed and then left, because it's not the same as I want to make this great game. Like, you get there and you realize that you look behind the curtain and the magic isn't really there. They just care about the dollar bill. And the more the more gaming is legitimized, the more it's becoming a business. The more it becomes a business, the more, in some senses, it becomes very conveyor belt, very Ford. I can't think of the word right now, but assembly line.
Yeah, something you could, like, the most straight across comparison you can make as to what the video game industry is becoming would be if you looked at the film industry, how it currently sits, in the sense that when they ultimately make a product, they have to look at it in the sense that, will this make money in the long run? Is this going to be something that will basically be a return on our investment in time? So it's very much that same thing. So I understand like the whole thing, like, indie developers can make really good games, but they're very basic games. They're not graphically intensive games because they don't have the time or the resources. So what a AAA title can do is take that exponential more amount of money and invest it in things that really kind of wow people. But what you're seeing now, oddly enough, is that you have more hardware being sold for the Xbox One, Wii U, and PlayStation 4 than past generations of gaming consoles. But you have fewer copies of software being sold. So it's kind of an odd kind of shift in how these systems are coming out, but fewer units of software are being moved. So video game companies need to seriously sit back and look at what it is that makes their product special, and ultimately what it is that drives people to buy their games.
Yeah.
So they can't keep pushing slop with the expectation of, because it's on the PS4, people are going to buy it because they want that title for their system. So they got to be a lot more strategic. And so I think companies like Japan, because ultimately Japan's economy is a smaller economy than that of the United States. Thus, inversely, if you look at, like, the company may not have as much money to spend on making a game that they make for global markets. So you have kind of this may not be correct, I could be wrong, I'm not an economist. So it's one of those things where, like, the company has to really evaluate where they can strategically compete in the game market. And making AAA titles may not necessarily be where they can compete anymore. They may have to look at doing something different.
Yeah. And here's kind of adding on to that, kind of somewhat tangenting, are my thoughts on that. And I'm going to list off a few names of people that have existed in some form of time, and then I'll explain my point after that. But you have the Wright brothers, Einstein, Da Vinci, Toby Fox, even Andy Warhol, who I don't like. These, and I could list off names forever, Beethoven. These are all people that didn't conform to what other people should expect of them. They didn't conform to the way everyone else thinks, meaning they didn't try to get a collection of some sort of income in order to do what they wanted to do. They created ideas that they thought were the best to their ability and improved on them And because of them just expressing their own creativity, they impacted the world in some way. You have the Wright brothers who were actually, they pioneered almost, if you ride cycles, like bicycles, more than likely their engineering has touched that bike. And because of their skills with bikes, they actually built airplanes. And that's what really got them to build airplanes. They thought about it from a different perspective from everyone else who was trying to use a boat to make an airplane. They're trying to use the design of a boat or the engineering of a boat to steer through the air. These guys went with bikes, totally against the logical way of thinking. But they revolutionized the way we live in America right now. And so my overall point is that people can't keep putting the dollar first, even though that's kind of what everyone wants to do. And I feel that if people actually put their creativity, their mind, their passions first, and the dollar second, they're going to get a shit ton of money. But it's going to be more authentic. And we're at this point where we're just trying to buy games to scratch that itch. But it's very temporary. I remember I used to be able to play a game for years. Like, I could play a game and go back to it and visit it. But now, maybe it's because I'm older, maybe it's because I'm jaded. But I can't play a game for more than like a couple of weeks without getting tired of it. Very few games I can do that. Street Fighter is one of them. Metal Gear, again, is one of them. Even the new Metal Gear, I have a hard time sitting down and playing.
Well, yeah, because it's not that great compared to the others.
Well, see, here, I'm gonna put this out there. This is kind of my random observation where, this is gonna sound like a crazy person tinfoil hat kind of thing, but my theory currently as it sits is that, because like in 1983, 1982, we had the video game crash that basically destroyed Atari, destroyed ColecoVision, destroyed Mattel and television, and ultimately that just destroyed America's interest in video games. But what I'm seeing now is that because you have such a massive number of titles hitting the game market now for every system, you have to wade through so many titles to get to the ones you want now. And I think what is happening to the game market is I think potentially we're heading towards another crash, not necessarily to the same severity of the ones we've had before. I think what we're going to have is you're going to have a massive issue where a lot of the big game companies are going to release titles and they're going to lose money on them, and they're going to have to seriously reevaluate how it is that they make their games. Because they're going to have to seriously think, like, how can we make a game better and cheaper? So they're going to have to get more economical and definitely more strategic about the titles they release. Because ultimately, if I go on Steam now, like, the number of PC titles being released on that platform alone is just exponential, where you can't find good titles at this point that aren't just fucking greenlit bullshit.
Yeah, and
there's all this stuff coming.
To kind of add on to that real quick, I think of the music industry. If you look at the music industry, there's a lot of people who were or are indie who are very successful right now because of how easy it is how easy it is to create your content, and then two, how easy it is to share that content. And so you have these cookie cutter, your pop musics and your fucking mumble rappers and all this other stuff who are mainstream, and they're very cookie cutter. But then you have, your underground rappers and your DJs and your even Skrillex, whether you like them or not.
I actually heard one of the songs. It's not too bad.
Right. You have these people who have all this readily available, and they create this hardcore fandom. So I think for me, if they continue to do this, I think we're almost at like a critical mass or something like that with AAA gaming, and even indie gaming is kind of getting like that too, because people are putting out, and I say this very cautiously, but developers are putting out some garbage just to get a buck, and you can see that in a few developers. And I don't mean any offense, but I know a quality game when I see them, and I know a game when they're trying to just like put a game out there to make some money,
Like Assassin's Creed, was it Unity?
Oh yeah, Assassin's Creed is one of those ones where like they would release a new title every couple of years, and it was pretty good stuff. Now they get switched to Madden, and you're like, damn it, don't do the Madden fucking game.
Oh dude, I found so many glitches in Unity, it's ridiculous, and I didn't get to that game like several months after it got released.
I still haven't played it. Like, my wife and I were so disappointed with
I want to say this: skip it and go straight to Syndicate.
I've been playing Black Flag, and I'm loving that.
Holy shit. Black Flag was awesome. It's pretty good.
Yeah, the pirate one wasn't bad. I mean, that was better, but just like, what was the one with Connor? Was Assassin's Creed 3 or 4?
3, because I know that very well because I had a standee in my basement.
3 was so disappointing. Like, as far as you're like, oh my god.
I was least excited for 3 because I didn't care about like the American Revolution. I know you probably did. I know you probably did.
The tree jumping mechanic, you're like, Jesus, this is terrible.
Oh wow.
Well, me and my friend, they gave us the okay to steal the standee at GameStop. we walked out with it and put it in his truck. So,
I approve.
Yeah.
We actually have one of those in our house too.
Nice.
I'm gonna take a picture with me next to one or something and post it. But yeah, I wanted to really talk about that. That's something that's kind of been brewing in my head, and I'm glad to actually get that out of my head. I felt like today was very insightful because this video games for us three and many people at the Console Explosion, that's kind of our life, and we have an influence on where that goes. And I want to be willing to address topics, things like, even though I'm a fanboy of Kojima, I want to be able to question what's going on. Even though I love video games, I want to question the AAA, because if we don't, kind of like what Jared talks about with Street Fighter, even though I'm happy with the content they provided, but that's his opinion, and video games fall into that category. But if we don't say anything, if we don't have that conversation, then we never really get anything accomplished. We just take what's given to us rather than actually influencing what is done and what's offered, and we also provide content in the process. So before we go, I also pass that question on to you. What do you guys think about this whole Konami Kojima thing? Do you not care, kind of like the whole Kaepernick thing? Are you on one side or are you on the other? Let us know down below. But I'm going to go down the line, starting with Ian, of where you can find them and what they do.
Yeah, you can find me on my website, www.historicnerd.com, or on YouTube, Historic Nerd, or one word. If you do two, you get other people, apparently. But yeah, if you want to talk to me directly, you can find me if you want to send a message to me directly, you can talk to me on Twitter, at historicalnerd, or at historicalnerd. I can't talk today, sorry. And then, yeah, or you can find me on theconsoleexplosion.com.
All right. And also, you have a new video that you just put out, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, RoboCop versus RoboCop.
Yeah, check that out. I really enjoyed that one. That was a really good video. So
I'm scarred by RoboCop. Ever since he shot me, it's his last Fan Fest.
Wait, we can't just walk away from that. What do you mean RoboCop shot you?
If you watched my convention video at the end, I got shot by him.
Okay, send me that link. That link, and I'll post it in the show notes. But let them know where they can find you and what you do.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Well, you can find me all kinds of places now. But you can follow me on YouTube, the Video Game Hunter, or Hot Anime 32. Both of those names will take you to the same channel. Take you to the same channel. I have a Twitter, VJ32, and I also do streaming for the Console Explosion every Monday. I am now currently playing Assassin's Creed Syndicate, taking a break from those retros for a bit. And if you're a furry, you can find me on furzu.com.
All right. And I'm The Philosopher. You can find me on Facebook.com/The Philosopher, YouTube at Philosopher, and Twitter at The Philosopher. But of course, you can find me and all these other guys on the consoleexplosion.com. Definitely recommend you guys go check it out. There's tons of good content on there. Also, if you did like this video, press that like button. If you want to see more like this and tons of other people from the community, go ahead and subscribe and you'll get updates. And of course, leave a comment on what we talked about earlier. As always, check out the links down below. We have tons of awesome partners that help us out. So I will see you guys in the next one, and have a good night.